Good morning, Harry.
Good morning, David. Nice to see you.
Likewise, welcome to the channel. So, to introduce you, Harry James is a Southampton-based creator, community leader, and motivational figure who has turned his personal journey with hair loss into a transformative platform for empowering others. Bold Cafe, which was founded by Harry, is a YouTube channel with over 230,000 subscribers that has become a safe haven for men grappling with the emotional and cultural challenges of losing their hair. Since 2018, Bold Cafe has evolved into a vibrant and inclusive community, offering men a liberating solution to hair loss by shaving their heads and embracing a new sense of freedom and confidence. I had the privilege of training with Harry on the Animaster Diploma back in 2022, and since then, Harry and I have become good friends and I've had many deep and meaningful conversations about personal development, of which I hope our conversation today will be an extension of those. So, Harry, it's a pleasure to invite you to the channel. I'd like to start by asking you, can you tell us a little bit more about your business, Bold Cafe, and what led you to starting it?
Sure. Yeah. No. Thanks for having me. And the kind words. So, why did I start Bold Cafe? I think um, the best way I can answer that is, when I was 25, losing my hair, dealing with that was very much sort of my first real big, I'd call it a transformative experience. It was I mean, it's to some this may sound crazy, but it was the first like truly significant challenge, that I kind of faced in terms of like the mental side of it. Um, and I say challenge because it was a tough time, challenges in it was a real roadblock for me dealing with that at 25. It's a lot of change, unwanted, um, out of the blue. All of these different things were kind of emotions, experiences that I hadn't really, experienced before. But, over time, I kind of figured out a way of dealing with it, a lot of introspection, and came out the other side of it a definitely a changed man, but I would argue a lot in many, many, many ways for the better. And maybe 6 months after that, I was sat there reflecting and I thought, that really was an ordeal. That really was tough, but I learned so much. And, I can't believe where I am now compared to where I was a year and a half ago. And I thought, there must be more guys out there struggling to deal with this, because I was that guy, online. How do I deal with this? How do I accept this? What on earth do I do? And so I thought, let me just put it out there. I'd already been dabbling in a bit of YouTube. It was just like a hobby, passion, whatever you want to call it. I just really liked YouTube. So I've been putting a few bits out there, and I thought, let me just share my story in the hopes that it can potentially help someone. And I did that, and the response was like instant. There was straight away guys in there saying, just on the most part, just thanks for sharing this. I'm going through the same thing. Thank you for just talking about it. Good, good to hear. I'm not the only one or the only person that feels this way. And I thought, wow, yeah, like there really is something in there. There really is a need for this. So then I think someone asked me a question, oh, when did you, if we're talking specifically about shaving hair, when did you decide to do it? Like what made you feel ready? Or so I made a video about that. More people came, more people were interacting in the comments or asking questions or just saying thank you. And then, the next video idea came, and that was, 7 years ago almost, and I literally haven't stopped. I haven't stopped since then. So, yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
Thanks, Harry. So we often talk about how we're best placed to help the person we used to be, and it sounds like you were able to sort of notice this business opportunity, but from the angle of supporting other people that were facing challenges that you'd faced, and found a way to cope with and handle. And was at that time, was it the only business of its sort, or was it something you'd seen done elsewhere and felt you could do better? Kind of how did that idea evolve?
Yeah, there was a few people online just talking about, you know, going bald, losing your hair, how to deal with it, or life afterwards. Maybe two or three. Um, One guy specifically, I know he had a little Facebook group that guys were in there. His name was, he doesn't do it anymore, but his name was Max De Silva. And I owe a lot to that guy. I can't lie. But there was a few people, but I thought, yeah, there needs to be more. There needs to be more, and I can be that guy. Um, Also, at this time, yeah, I was reading. If we're talking about specifically like business wise, I'd read the 4 Hour Work Week. I'd read, I'd started to. There's another one called Millionaire Fast Lane or something. I was dabbling in a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk's content online. And I was really trying to align, I guess, like my personal passions, experience with, potentially figuring out like a business avenue. Had no idea where it was going to go at that time. But I thought, just putting this out there, like you said there, helping people is the start, is the start. And I had goals early on for what I wanted to achieve with YouTube. And at the time it was just, let me kind of prove the concept, gather an audience. I think, I really wanted to hit 100,000 subscribers within the 3 years. At the time, that was the sort of metric to me that meant success or meant, yeah, I've done it. So yeah, early on, I kind of did strive for that. And like I said, I just, yeah, didn't stop. I tried to put out 2 videos a week. After about 2 years, started making some money with AdSense and had other ideas coming in. And then I thought, I really want to go full time with this, which luckily eventually I was able to do.
You mentioned sort of so from starting the channel 6 years ago, back in 2018, and then you mentioned sort of after 3 years had that big 100K subscribers milestone. In what other ways has the channel and the community evolved, and kind of what's it grown into now compared to what it was when at its initial conception?
Yeah, I mean, initially, like I said, just started off with me, right? Me sharing my story, sharing my experience. But then, well, I want to say maybe like a year in, I got a message on Instagram. Even then, like the Instagram back when it was just only photos. I'd take pictures of me like looking all ominous and cool, staring off into the distance with my big beard and stuff. And someone's messaged me saying like, "Oh, you should also like share similar transformations of other people." And I thought, yeah, that is a good idea because I was also getting these DMs saying like, "Oh, cool page, like yeah, I went bold 3 years ago. Like, this is cool to see you doing this. I wish this was around, 3, 5 years ago, whatever." And so I started just doing like a little side by side of these guys, like before and after. And then in the description, I would get them to kind of share a little summary of their journey and maybe a little inspiring message at the end of that. Again, to help inspire these other guys to kind of move past it and drop the kind of insecurity of it all. And then, like I said, I got a DM from a guy saying, "Hey, I'm I'm still rocking the the hair, the fading hair, but I've been debating doing this whole head shave thing for a while now. Your videos are really helping me. I'd love to kind of share my story." And that happened maybe like two or three, no, I think like twice. Never, eventually those guys did do it, but we're talking like 2 or 3 years later. However, then I got in touch from a message from a guy called Adam over in California. And he was like, "I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm committing. I'm going to put it on video and I want you to share this on your channel." And I was like, "Amazing. Yeah, let's do it." We had an interview, a bit like this one, and he went away and he did it. And then we had like a post head shave video, interview to kind of really share his whole story, because I think a lot of the draw to the channel is guys who are thinking about making a step. They obviously want to prepare as best they can. And one way to do that is to see, how other people have dealt with it or how other people have maybe reacted or have felt. A lot of the time they want to see how these guys look because they're thinking like, how am I going to look? What am I going to look like? What's it going to feel like? I think in a way to kind of reassure themselves and gain that courage to eventually do it themselves. And that was a real hit. That video really was a big hit. And I'm always, very grateful to Adam for doing that because it did change the trajectory of the channel. he came forward, and then it wasn't long after that, another guy came forward, Liam over in Germany. I remember a lot of these guys. He came through and wanted to do the same, and then that became a big part of the channel. It's these guys, watching other guys do it, getting that inspiration to do it themselves. Not only that, then using that as a way to be like, you know what, I want to kind of give back to this channel, this community that has helped me by sharing my story. And often guys would say to me, and again, it's the reason why I filmed that first video of me talking about my story. It was like, look, if I can just help one guy get past this, feel better about this, whatever it is, then it's worth doing. So let's do it. Um, and yeah, that became a huge part of Bold Cafe. And with that, really it became this kind of online community, where guys not only share their story, but even just interact, in the comments and things like that, or over on Instagram. And it grew into that, and it really kind of exploded, especially during that whole lockdown era, when people were spending more time online, or more time in their own head, worrying about these sorts of things. Yeah, the channel kind of exploded. And it was a great thing, it really was.
Thanks, Harry. So you mentioned there sort of in this like timeline of the growth of the channel, that transformational conversations and interviews form a key part of the content and the value that people are coming back to and engaging with. And I was wondering if we can sort of go back to like 2022, a couple of years ago, what led you to deciding um, to sign up for the coaching diploma with Animas, um, alongside running your business as Bold Cafe, the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember it specifically. So I was getting a lot of messages from guys who were like, "Look, can I just talk to you about this?" They were struggling with the hair loss. They were decided, unsure what to do, and they were reaching out and saying, "Look, can I just talk to you about this?" And I was already a big kind of proponent of, a big supporter of a big step in getting past this is to just talk about it. That was something that I kind of did almost subconsciously early on with a colleague of mine. Just kind of said, "Oh, I'm so, terrified of, you know, how my life's going to turn out. Like, I'm not going to be able to get the job I want. Like, I'm going to look so ugly. all these things running through my head." But then when I actually spoke to this colleague of mine, about these things, I sort of, it was over message, sure, but I sort of read it back, or as I was saying these things, semi out loud for the first time rather than just in my head, I was able to kind of challenge them. And I thought, well, is that actually what's going to happen? So that in my own journey was huge. That was a big game changer when I had that conversation. So I would tell guys, look, you need to talk, like, just talk about it, because when you do that, you can see it from another perspective, that you can really kind of challenge what's going on up here, in your mind. So I would say that a lot. And I would say on these videos, if you've got no one to talk to, just talk to me, right? Send me an email, even, like, let's do it. But then as I went down that road, I thought, look, I do actually want to be able to do this properly, and not just say to guys, oh yeah, this is exactly what you do. Because I knew it didn't work like that, right? It has to come from you. So this coincided with myself actually being coached for the first time. It was a guy who originally, like I said, came onto the channel. What we did a podcast. He wanted to share his story, and at the end, he sort of dropped in. He was like, "Look, I'm actually a life coach, and just my way of saying thank you. Look, if you want 2 or 3 sessions on the house, let me know." Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, "Yeah, all good. Yeah, don't worry. I don't need that. Don't worry about it." But then I think a couple of months after, I thought, you know what? Let me entertain this. Let me, got a few things I need to work through. I could do with a bit of direction or whatever else. Let's do it. And I did this few sessions with this guy, and I thought, wow, this has actually been so helpful. Um, and so I asked him, what did he do? Does he know any kind of coaching bodies that are out there? And he mentioned Animas. Uh, I'm not sure if he had done it with Animas or he just had heard about it. What or I can't remember. But anyway, he said, this is a good one. And in all honesty, I just went on the website and thought, this is something I really need to do. I really need to know how to listen, how to hold a conversation, how to hold a space, sorry, like for someone else to facilitate someone else making the best decision. And I knew instantly, I was like, right, this is definitely need to do this. And I thought at the time, I thought, even if I don't end up like charging for this stuff and all the rest of it, I'm having these conversations with these guys. I want to do it properly. I want to be able to give those people the best kind of value, let's say, that I can. And yeah, it was a pretty quick turnaround, really. I went online and I did their little, what was it? That little like taster session or whatever you call it, the introduction. And I think because it wasn't so much about like business or um that like sports performance or coaching in that regard, it really did align with what I wanted to do, which was this kind of transformation that these guys kind of go through, and I went through. I thought, yeah, okay, this seems like it aligns best with what I want to do. Um, the kind of structure, the calendar, whatever you want to call it, was like bang on. So yeah, I just went for it. Really, I just thought this. I need to do this, so let's get it done. I tried not to overthink it or whatever, and it was brilliant. Yeah, it was brilliant. I don't know if you're gonna ask me like how I found it and stuff like that, but it was straight away. It was exactly what I needed. Really great bunch of like people that were on the course. Of course, that's how we met. Um, and I really enjoyed it. I did really genuinely enjoy the sessions. I felt good that I was kind of investing in. It felt like a big investment into like what I was already doing. There were like key concepts that I learned about, listening, things like that, that I hadn't previously, I don't want to say thought of, but I guess hadn't previously acknowledged like the extent of their like true value in like helping other people or, not helping other people isn't even the right word. It's like helping them help themselves, which is ultimately the goal I was trying to achieve. Yeah, just those key concepts going through that. And again, like the practice, we got straight into it almost and doing all these little the practice sessions and stuff were always like just good fun, just really good fun. So yeah, that's kind of how I came about to do that. And I chose Animas because it, like I say, it aligned. I felt like it aligned best with what I wanted to do. It didn't feel push, and I'm not like this is genuinely like my consideration. Like it didn't feel pushy or um salesy, really. Which was, I guess, credit to whoever's been trained to hold those like taster sessions. But like that's honestly what I felt very comfortable like from the get go. Even doing that because I did do others. I did consider other programs and I went on to their taster sessions, but you can get a sense when something is just like straight away like an upsell, things like that, and that's never really been my style. So I didn't feel good about those ones. So yeah, that's kind of how that came about.
Thanks, Harry. I would really want to dive into how you're using coaching in what you currently do now, and how you've added it into your sort of implemented it in your conversations. But before we do that, I just wanted to zoom in on one thing you mentioned about that. This someone offered you some life coaching in return, as an exchange of services, as you'd helped him through your channel. And initially, you thought, "Nah, I'm not interested. Don't need that." I just wonder what your perception of life coaching was then, compared to what it is now.
Yeah, yeah. Like pure ignorance in the sense of like I think many people when you hear the term life coach, you think, right, I'm gonna hire this person and they're gonna tell me how to sort my life out. Like, right, get up at 6 a.m., you know, uh, drink more water, like all of these things. I honestly did think that that was what it was, right? And I thought, well, I'm already reading books about these things. I'm already like, I know I need to do that, right? Everyone knows that those are good things to do. So I just kind of wrote it off, really, as something I didn't need, because it's like, well, you're not going to tell, you can't tell me anything that I don't already know that I need to be doing. And I just assumed that that's what it was. But very quickly, no, his name was Simon. Very quickly, he did. It's really funny, actually. Side note: he emailed me the other day, just to like check up on how I was. I haven't spoken to him for like 2 years, but I replied to him just this morning. But yeah, he very quickly was like, "No, that's not what I'm here to do. Like, I just kind of hold the space for you to figure out what you need to be doing, let's just say that, or you can bring to the table whatever you want, whatever you think you need to work through." And it was a bit of a challenge at first, because I was like, well, what do I need to work through or bring to the table? And we started off, as I think a lot of people will, if they're in this world or they're considering it, or you have any experience with it, we started off with the surface level stuff. Oh, I need to de-stress a bit or something like that, and slowly but surely you kind of dig deeper. And I used a lot of those first sessions, can't lie, to just get a lot of stuff off my chest. Um, things I was kind of holding on to, or things that were going on for me, but I was kind of pushing to the side, and they were obviously weighing me down, or bogging me down, but I didn't really at that time appreciate to what extent, right? And so, yeah, that was really good. That was like, honestly, I couldn't say that was life changing, because he, again, just kind of held that space. And slowly but surely, I felt more and more comfortable bringing things up that were actually like what was really going on, Um, and that gave me a lot more respect, I guess you could say, for the industry and for what it was. And I always felt frustrated, actually, when you get into it yourself and you are kind of fighting against that ignorance to what life coaching is. And you actually have to work quite hard to educate people on what it really is and how it can really benefit you, because often people are in the same position I was, where you can't truly appreciate it for what it is until you have some experience with it. And often that is kind of behind a paywall, or, it's not often that people are like, yeah, let me give you 3 sessions for absolutely nothing. You can dive into it, right? Even if you're just buying a book on it or something like that, right? There is a kind of barrier to entry usually. And so I think a lot of people don't get the benefit of what it truly is because of that, like me. I kind of shunned it for a bit because I didn't understand it, and kind of was like, no, I don't need that. I don't need you to tell me like how to sort my life out. um, so yeah, it was honestly just on a whim, a bit of luck, really, on a whim. I just thought, well, he's offered it to me. Like, let's see what this is really about. Um, and so that got that ball rolling. Does that answer your question?
Definitely, it's interesting as you're talking. I was thinking on reflection, it I find it's harder to describe what coaching is to someone new that's not in the world of coaching. It's harder to describe what goes on within the coaching container than it is to deliver the coaching itself. And I find myself, personally, I go to business networking events and things, and go online and try and describe to friends and family what coaching is, and it's almost impossible to convey it and communicate it without saying sort of, when you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that is a frustrating part of it for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people who are in getting into the industry or are in it perhaps face, until you've built up that kind of testimonials, things like that, right? It's quite difficult getting it off the ground. And yeah, like you said, kind of communicating to people who could really benefit, that they could really benefit without just doing it, like without them, you got to see it for yourself or experience it for yourself. And I think that came from me when I first realized the value was kind of afterwards. And I think he did kind of say to me that this might happen, or maybe he followed up, and I was exhausted. I remember after the first call, it was maybe an hour, just over, and I felt exhausted because it was one of the first times that I just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and just got, everything out. Well, not everything, but like a huge amount of stuff, just like I said, off my chest, or I was just going and going and going. And I was like, oh, afterwards, I couldn't believe what had happened, because obviously, again, you get these kind of, even if they're just small insights or new perspectives. I hadn't really done that until like I said before, that other conversation where I was talking about the hair loss and everything I was afraid was going to happen. That was about 4 years prior to this, or 5 years even prior to this first kind of real coaching experience that I'd had. And that having a real coaching experience was the thing that allowed me to recognize that conversation that I'd had all those years ago about my hair loss was kind of like that. This colleague of mine, I don't think she really knew that that's what was going on. I think it was a bit of sheer luck that she was the sort of person to just ask questions, or, when I said like, oh, I'm gonna look so old and horrible and my life, and she, rather than being like, no, you won't, she was just like, oh, why do you think that? You know? And then I would say, and I'd be like, oh, that was the thing that made me question, like, oh, yeah, why do I think that? Like, what am I basing that off? Like, what evidence do I actually have for that? So it was those years later when I got into coaching that I realized what that was. And you asked earlier kind of how the business has changed and things like that. And I wanted to, my goal when I started the channel and Bold Cafe was to help as many guys as I could. And I thought, right, one way I can do that is to kind of put, collect everything I've learned, um, everything I know that can help these guys from my own experience and from all the interviews I've done with other guys into like a bit of a guide, right? Into this guide. And so a key thing that I put in that early on in the guide was like, look, you have to really understand what you're dealing with here. And one way for you to do that is to have a conversation around all these things you're afraid of, that you fear. Um, and a lot of the stuff that I put in that guide was, look, you need to choose someone that's just going to listen to you. Because again, often something that happens, again, this is obviously a specific example, but when guys are going to their sort of partners or friends or colleagues looking for that space where they want to be listened to, but because if you're not educated on actually how to listen to someone, of course you get the normal sort of feedback, which is, as I mentioned earlier, people will say, oh, don't worry about it. You look fine. Stop worrying, forget about it. Like, don't, all the rest of it, which isn't listening, of course, right? So it does nothing for the person who's having that issue to give them that different perspective. So one of the things that I really made a key point about putting into the course was you have to choose someone that's going to listen to you. And of course, I had to describe what that looks like, what that actually is, which I got from the Animas course and the reading materials that they give you. Um, Going through the Animas course is what made me understand, what truly listening is. So I was able to then kind of put that in the stuff that I put out now, which I think goes a long way to helping, to fulfilling this mission of like actually helping these guys work through their kind of insecurity around the hair loss and the rest of it.
Thanks, Harry. And I know we've had some great conversation about the how sort of culturally we're sort of conditioned, particularly as men, traditionally to suck it up and express those feelings, bottle them up, and sort of just get on with it, man up, that kind of thing. And I know we've had, I think we initially connected a couple of years ago, and some of our initial conversations about, oh, I'm into personal development. Oh, me too. I've read these books. I've read that. But then also that the true value of, airing those feelings and getting them out rather than bottling them up. And I wondered, with the way you're integrating coaching into your interviews and the work that you do with the followers and subscribers of your channel, if there's any other value that you'd like to call out, shout out, that you've experienced either from being coached or holding that space and really actively listening to the people that you've been interviewing. A better question would be, what are some of the other benefits you've seen of using those coaching skills in conversations through your channel?
Mm, mm. I think the listening one is huge. That is, I think that's a huge part of it. Um, I think the very nature of having these conversations, and perhaps, something that I have been able to do, not to kind of blow my own trumpet, but even just when we put out these videos of me and another guy having this very sort of like personal conversation, which, don't forget, these guys are going online on a public platform, literally sharing the very thing that they felt most insecure about. I think simply just doing that and not even saying like, oh, this is what we're doing, like, oh, we're here to have this deep, meaningful, open, we don't do any of that. We just simply do it. I think it does sort of then inadvertently sort of promote that openness, that not being like ashamed about it, which is a huge part of actually moving past all that. Because like you said, you know, of course, you got to be on board with guys opening up more, speaking about it, but there is something, I believe anyway, it's a big challenge. It's almost like the more you kind of drum on about it though, or describe it like, come on, guys, we've really got to have this nice conversation. It's a very tough, I think it's very difficult promoting that um, by saying it, because in some ways it can be a bit of a turn off, It's like, oh god, all these people banging on about needing to open up, blah blah blah. It just almost makes it like a little bit like uncool and stuff like that. So I think just the very nature of just simply doing it, is the best way I think I've found to promote that, because you're not, you don't have to describe exactly what it is. You're just kind of showing rather than telling. And I think that's a bit more of an attractive uh, way of doing it, basically. Just simply seeing guys do it is like, makes it normal, right? I think that's a big challenge, for a lot of like charities and mental health work and stuff like that. It is tough because it's like the trying to think of a parallel sort of example or metaphor for it, but perhaps it links to this. I saw a thing recently, it again every year we're doing this during the whole Movember thing and things like that. It's simply, and this kind of did reframe that whole thing for me with men's mental health and things like that. It's simply almost biological, innate in men. I think the exact thing I read was like men are far less likely to talk about their issues, their problems and things like that, um, than women and things, which is of course why men's mental health, the suicide rate and everything is such a prevalent topic now, especially in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Um, just because of our very nature, right? Our very nature. Even the way men interact, I know me and my buddies will kind of do that sort of, that sort of backhanded, again, I don't know if I'm extending your interview too deep here, but we'll do that sort of backhanded way of bringing up an issue, but in like it's a joke, So you'll breach a topic with someone, but by making a joke about it or something like that. And that's just the way we interact. So it's not like talking so much, but you're able to kind of breach that topic. And I think that's fine. I think that's a fine way to do it. It's a very natural, normal way of how guys interact. Um, And that often manifests in the work that I do with a bit of self-deprecating humor, which there's a time and a place for that. I'm not necessarily fully on board with it being a huge extent of what guys do, but again, there's a time and a place for it to just breach the topic. So, um, I think I've kind of gone over what your initial question asked. I apologize, but um, yeah, I think. Sorry, I don't even know what the original question was.
Well, I absolutely love what you said there about how, you know, what we're effectively doing is normalizing the act of men talking about their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and their mental health, and it not being sort of such a stigmatized sort of, oh dear, that's all a bit wishy-washy and oh, a bit gooey, and I don't like that, and make it more like standardizing it.
What I do want to add, I think it's important for me to kind of be open and add as well, is I will fully admit that the coaching space, it started off with Simon, did a bit of it through the Animas course, but then the relationships I made through the Animas course, yourself, other people, um, gave me, I guess, the confidence to breach topics on a personal level that I'd previously never done. And I wouldn't be where I'm at now if I hadn't have done that. Started off with Simon, um, things that you wouldn't want to talk to your friends about, or the missus, or even your parents. For some people, the relationship I had with my parents, you know, fantastic relationship, but not on that deep kind of personal level. Maybe it's because you feel like you don't want to burden these people with your issues, or you just don't feel comfortable with it. But the coaching space made me feel comfortable enough to bring these things up that I did need to talk about, and I needed to work through. Um, and it gave me a newfound respect for that, for sure, for sure. And that has then kind of transferred into my own coaching, very much wanting to hold a similar space for people that come to me who do want to just be fully honest, fully open, um, and share things that they need to share, but perhaps don't feel comfortable with other people. So I think that's another thing that often gets kind of misinterpreted or misunderstood, is like often a coaching relationship will start off, and this has been my experience, by kind of like doing a lot of weeding, let's call it, working through, let's say, a lot of kind of negative things that are going on. And once you've kind of done that, it progresses onto, right, now we're talking about the future. Now that you kind of worked through that baggage, let's say, the stuff weighing you down, you're free to kind of start dreaming and planning and projecting for the future. So it's not all just about, right, yeah, no, life's fine for now. Like, I'm good, bro. But, I want to be a millionaire. So let's just start there. Often it is the whole spectrum, and it's like, right, well, to get there, that's great. We want to aim for that, let's say. But why aren't you there now already? And often it's the things that you perhaps haven't worked through or haven't brought to the table with other people that is the starting place. So that, I think that's important to mention, because when I reflect on all my experience with coaching, not only, through the Animas course, but the stuff I've done before and after, that was what it's really been about for me, working through all of those bits, and yeah, I would not be doing what I'm doing now without that, for sure.
Thanks, Harry. I feel like for anyone watching and thinking, what are you actually on about? There's a space and thought. I don't really understand that. So, if, I feel like I just want to add the definition of, the coaching container, the coaching space. It's a place between the client and the coach that's free of judgment, free of assumptions. It's kind of, one definition of coaching is facilitated thinking. So it's being able to bounce ideas off someone, your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, positives, negatives, doesn't matter, and being able to hear yourself out loud, and having someone there that's impartial, that has a no attachment to you and your life and what you're talking about, but that you do share the goal of wanting to make progress and move things forward and feel better at the end of the session. So, it's just that space to explore openly and freely with your coach. I mean, there are techniques and models and things that you, as a coach, you can introduce into the session if the client wishes. But equally, I think fundamentally at its core, it's about just having that space to think versus if sort of coaching yourself. The challenge there is that you just tend to go around. I know I go around in circles, but when I'm talking to someone else, I have new ideas and new thoughts, and things start to come together. I don't know if there's anything else you'd add to kind of that description of what goes on in the coaching container.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's I think you described it perfectly. But one thing I would add that maybe makes more sense is the initial work I felt in coaching was after the coaching sessions, just feeling a lot lighter, a lot lighter mentally, even physically to some extent, but feeling lighter and feeling like this, whatever you're trying to work through is work throughable. You're like, before I came into it, I was like, oh, I don't know how to handle this. I can't handle this. And at the end, I felt the complete opposite. I can handle this. I know what I need to do, or at least I know the first step. And that is, yeah, just invaluable.
So, Harry, I'd like to bring the spotlight back onto you and Bowl Cafe. You gave us a sort of a whistle stop tour of the YouTube channel, but I know there's a lot more to you and the brand and what's going on in your life at the moment. I wondered if you'd like to share a little more about kind of where the channel is now, where it's going, and some of the other plates that you're spinning at the moment.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot. And I think so. Luckily, the channel is pretty well established now. And all the time, I'm crazy in the DMs and the emails or in the comments on YouTube. And, you know, very fortunate. We still got guys coming forward that are kind of like, again, wanting to give back, So I do a lot of interviews, still putting those out there. And that's a great way that I help a lot of these guys. But it's obviously grown, in this new avenues. And I'm always trying to refine the kind of learning materials I'm putting out there in terms of courses and videos and communities to again facilitate this kind of mission that I have of helping as many men as I can work through their hair loss, struggles, get on the other side, confidently and bravely. I've been working on a book for a long time now, but perhaps again, these are things that I'm working on myself. It's trying to really nail that to the point where I feel happy about it, and that's something I've been working on with my coach. In terms of how I do that best. So we got the book. I'm quite a creative person, so I've actually started like another YouTube channel, which has brought it back to being a bit more creative, where I do these kind of barbershop tours, which is taking me, to different parts of the world and will continue to do so. So I'm loving that. And actually, as a byproduct of that, I started a barbering course myself. So I got into the world of barbering. Again, it's like a creative bit of a creative outlet, but it all kind of links together. Of course, these decisions I make still takes me kind of towards this mission that I've got. They do align. And again, I got to say that those things have come about through working with my own coach. Helping me make those decisions. So we've got that. I've really been working on Bowl Cafe as a brand, and part of that has been a clothing line portion of Bowl Cafe. Again, kind of getting these creative outlets out there, these creative pursuits, a product line as well, which links to it. It's been going on for years, but that's been a really big success, and I'm hoping to continue to refine those and make them even more successful. So it's like a giant machine, really, a giant machine. But everything I try to do with it links back to my own sort of goals and desires, which is to, continue to be creative, but use that as a way to, help others. Um, and again, I keep mentioning it, but this mission that I had from day one, to help as many guys as I could, all links to that. And I'm still working on the kind of coaching side of things. Again, I still do these calls with guys every now and again. I perhaps get a quite an in-depth email, and I think, you know what, rather than me pinging you back an email, let's jump on Zoom. Let's have a call about this. Let's work through it. Um, so I'm still been doing that um, somewhat regularly. As and when is kind of needed for guys that can really benefit from it. Um, and yeah, who knows where, this all ends up, but there are a lot of plates being spun at the moment, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thanks, Harry. It's a very exciting time for you, and we've had some great conversations about that. I look forward to those continuing. So to start to round off, if there's someone listening who's maybe, a bit like yourself, a creator, someone who's got a brand, an established profession and a niche, and it's going really well, and they're considering adding coaching as like another string to their bow, and it might not be that they want to go into becoming a professional coach full time as their main source of income, but maybe they just have this feeling that training as a coach might add another element or another, enable them to level up in terms of whatever it is that they're doing now. I'm wondering if there's anything, any advice or guidance you'd give to that creator who's maybe on the cusp of signing up, but just not quite sure, a bit hesitant about it.
So yeah, I think if you're in a position where the nature of your work, like mine, is in delivering information to other people so that they can use that information to help them, or a lot of the stuff you've done is around a struggle or challenge that you've had, and now all the stuff work you do is in helping other people overcome that challenge, whatever it might be. It could be in employment, or it could be travel, it could be relationships, anything, right? Which of course is a big part of what people do on social media now, right? It's like helping other people um, through something that they've had experience in overcoming. Even if you're a writer, or you've got a blog, anything like that, I think going through the course, the Animas course, it definitely changes the way you approach content to a place where you can be confident that you are doing your best to truly like facilitate these people helping themselves, right? Because obviously one of the things you learn is about this dependency on a coach or something, right? So what coaching definitely isn't is you hire someone to just tell you what to do, but then you become dependent on that person telling you what to do, right? That's not what it is. But I think perhaps even in my own content, or other people maybe experience this, what you don't really want to be doing is telling people what to do, because that just doesn't work, right? That just doesn't work. If someone comes on a call with me like, "Oh, Harry, what should I do?" And I say, "Yeah, you need to do A, B, and C and do it right now." That hasn't come from them, right? And that was probably one of the biggest things that I learned, is that by telling someone what to do or what I think they should do, it doesn't actually help them, and it doesn't really get them any closer to actually doing the thing that's going to help them. But by simply reframing it, so perhaps if that person comes to me, which they still do now, "Harry, what should I do about this?" Let's say, very specific example. "Can I send you some pictures of how my hair's looking? Is it time for me to shave my head?" And I say, "Yes, you should do it." Well, they probably already know that, right? And they are getting in touch for them to, again, have that confidence to do it, or have that really feel for themselves that they should do it. But if I simply turn around and say, "Yeah, you should do it, mate," they're not any closer to doing it. They're not. But if I say, "Well, I could simply ask them, "Well, why are you really sending me this message? Why are you really DMing me here?" And they think about that for a minute, or introspect on that, and they think, "Yeah, why am I doing that? Why am I messaging this guy? Oh, I think it's because I really, really want to do it. I'm just scared." Okay, well, what are you scared of? "Oh, if you really push me for an answer, I'm scared my wife isn't going to find me attractive anymore." Okay, now we're actually getting to the point where they're getting closer to understanding, why they should do it, why they want to do it. And they're getting much closer to actually taking the action that is going to actually, truly benefit them. So I think, look, if you're in any sort of line of work or you're creating things that links to solving problems, which, let's be honest, that's what business is at the end of the day, right? Then it's invaluable in that, because I only truly understood these things after going through the course. So now any conversation I have, whether it's personally, on video call, in the DMs, even the content that I put out, it's not, hey, you need to do this. It comes from a different place, and a place where I at least feel more confident that the work that I'm doing now is more beneficial to the people that are receiving it. And so for me, that was the biggest value of going through the course. Yeah.
Thanks, Harry. And I just want to I just add and echo your words just in terms of feeling more equipped. In the past, pre-coaching, a friend might have said to me, "Oh, I'm having a really bad time at the moment, and I'm really struggling, and I've got made redundant or something like that. Or I'm losing my hair, and I don't know what to do." And then, as a well-meaning friend, I might have said, "Well, I don't know. Do you want to go down the pub, have a drink? Do you want to have a coffee? I don't know, go to the cinema. Come over, let's play some games." But feeling quite like, well, I don't really know what to say to him. So maybe the best thing I can do is distract him and make him feel better. But now I feel equipped to, okay, I can, if he wishes, we can have a conversation about it. We can kind of go beneath like the iceberg model in coaching, rather than looking at the surface level above the water. We can actually delve into, what's actually going on here. And maybe he's having a hard time because of one thing, but maybe it's something else that's much deeper that we could have a conversation about. And just feeling able to hold that space and support that friend, for me, has been a game changer. But again, it's not something to inflict on someone and say, "Oh, I'm a coach now, let me coach you." It's more of a, do you want to just have a conversation? And it can be over a coffee, over a pint, but you can still use the coaching skills in kind of any situation. That really listening to someone and listening to understand rather than listening to respond. So just all echoing everything that you said there. And in terms of the fantastic work that you're doing, if someone like myself who's listening and's really interested to find out more about you, your journey, your business, kind of where it's going, and wants to contact you, kind of where can they find you and how can they get in touch?
Sure. Yeah. Good place to start is Instagram. So the handle there is at Bowl Cafe. This is a little inside knowledge, but pretty active in the DMs there. Or if you just head to YouTube, type in Bowl Cafe, you'll find the channel. And in all of the descriptions there, you've got you'll find my email where you can contact me there. Bowlcafe.com, of course. Those are probably the three main outlets. Welcome you to check it out and get in touch if you'd like.
Brilliant. And we'll make sure the links to the YouTube channel, the website, and the Instagram at least are in the description to the video and in the article as well. So all that's left to say from me, Harry, is just a huge thank you for coming on the channel today. It's been a long time in the making, this conversation, and I'm delighted that we've finally made it happen. So thank you for coming in.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you for having me. Really good.